This is a very brief presentation. If you would like more information, please select the QR code here where you can view a longer version of the same presentation. Mindfulness is transtherapeutic and can mitigate the adverse psychological and physical symptoms for both people working in the addictions workforce and people with addictions by addressing the stress surfeit, distress intolerance, motivational factors, fatigue. The science of mindfulness-based practices show that it's clinically relevant in changing neural networks involved in stress and addictive behaviors. It can help to reduce physiological stress arousal. It can mediate and moderate traumatic stress symptoms. It can cultivate cognitive and behavioral skills for the management of addictive behaviors and stress. The habit loop or craving cycle develops from neural networks that fire together and wire together. So when we learn to respond to stress in a particular way through eating, drinking, shopping, substance use, find it rewarding, we learn to do it again. This develops what we call a negative neuroadaptation, in which we respond to stressful or overwhelming feelings with unhealthy or unhelpful responses because they make us feel better, at least in the short term. With mindfulness-based skills, we cultivate positive neuroadaptation. So through mindful awareness, we can make choices and respond rather than reacting to triggers or cues, thus avoiding perhaps substance use or impulsive behaviors. And the reward that we feel in this case is not acting negatively or impulsively and continuing to respond in new and more helpful ways can help us to develop and foster new neurocognitive pathways that get strengthened through more and more practice. The foundations of mindfulness-based approaches to recovery for both people in the workforce and people with addictions is that it helps to develop the capacity to investigate our thoughts, emotions, behaviors, and sensations. Through this process, we can reduce reactivity to distressing thoughts and emotions, cultivate an awareness of our intrapersonal and interpersonal causes and conditions that lead to suffering and addiction, and increase cognitive and attentional control, which ultimately mitigates stress reactivity. Research has shown that mindfulness-based interventions can help to foster self-regulation, reduce traumatic stress symptoms, decouple stress reactivity and craving neurocircuitry, and change brain regions that are correlated with greater attentional control, decreasing stress response and cravings. Self-regulation is essential for distress tolerance, managing of cravings, fostering mental well-being, whereas poor self-regulation increases the development of addictive behaviors. This little illustration here shows us how the brain circuits become wired together in under conditions of trauma, stress, and addictions. The thalamus regulates sensory input. The amygdala is sort of like a security guard, always on alert for potential threats. And they become overly reactive and sort of tied together in that they wire and fire together. What happens in this case is that we develop strong neural networks between thalamus and amygdala, but we have weaker connectivity between the prefrontal cortex and the thalamus, thus often misinterpreting sensory cues and input. And the stress response becomes amplified in people with addictions and trauma, affecting both addictions workforce personnel and our patients. Mindfulness-based practices have been shown to make changes in the brain whereby the thalamus and the prefrontal cortex become more strongly linked together. Rather than reacting to sensory input automatically without awareness, we are able to respond, consider what the thoughts, feelings, and sensations are. And this mindful attention helps to reduce cravings, neural activity, and functional connectivity in craving-related areas of the brain. Through repeated practice, we develop what we call positive neuroadaptation, in that in response to the triggers or stressors, we are able to consider what this actually means and choose healthier, more positive responses to those triggers and cues. Mindful training breaks the link between the urge and action. Another way of applying mindfulness is when we talk about mindful surfing, whereas we can't stop the waves that are coming at us, the thoughts, the sensations, cravings, and emotions, we can learn to surf them skillfully. Here we look at the adaptation or the use of the mindfulness skill known as the rain technique, in which we don't suppress the intense thoughts, feelings, and emotions or cravings, but we recognize them. We observe them, we accept them, we investigate them, we notice what's happening. And with this approach, we are able to then decrease the intensity over time of thoughts, emotions, and sensations, and decrease the intensity over time of cravings. If you'd like more information and to watch a fuller version of this presentation, please select the QR code in the corner, where you can watch a longer video presentation that goes more in depth as to what mindfulness is and provides additional information.